All right, hello everybody. Welcome. We are going to do a new recording for our friends from Attain Partners and our new friend Mike from Harvard as well. We're going to do what's called a sponsor showcase. Now, this year at Higher Ed Dreamin', we did a few of these. It's very dramatic. We have a timer. They have 7 minutes. They're going to interview their own a customer of their own. So this is going to be Jason interviewing Mike. We're going to learn a little bit about some of the projects that they've worked on, how it's went, and specifically just more about how they're working together. I hear there might be a webinar coming up in January as well. So, what I'm going to do is basically just get off the stage here. I'm going to start the timer. I'm going to hand it over to Jason, and we're going to hear all about what's happening at Harvard. Jason, are you ready for that?
I am so ready for that. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Haley. Hey, everyone. Great to be with you today. Jason Beland, Executive in Residence at Attain Partners, where I work with all of our customers to help them think about their strategy in transforming the student experience. Some of you may know, but I also spent about 8 years at Salesforce leading product and product marketing for Education Cloud. So I have deep expertise in Salesforce and in the education space. And I'm delighted to have Mike Maguire here with me from Harvard Kennedy School. Attain is, we take a people-driven approach to higher ed and to working with our clients, and Mike's team at Harvard Kennedy School is a great example of that. We worked with them quite some time ago, building out their executive education program in Salesforce. And since then, their team has been empowered to do all sorts of cool stuff, including what we're going to talk about today, which is a new portal experience for faculty, staff, and for students. Haley mentioned this, but we're going to have a full webinar with Mike coming up on January 14th. So this is sort of our teaser to a portion of that webinar. So Mike, thank you for being with us. Maybe I want to jump into the portal and all the great work you're doing. Maybe just first an intro for everybody.
Sure, yeah. Thanks. Glad to be here. So Mike McGuire, I'm the director of CRM here at the Kennedy School. So like Jason said, we started our Salesforce journey way back in 2017 with Attain. So that was focused specifically on our executive programs. Since then, we've built two more orgs, one for a public leadership credential, which is kind of an online path to a master's. And then finally, what we'll talk about today is we built a school-wide org to handle all of our research centers, admin units, and growing into students. And that's where a few years ago, we decided to replace our intranet, which was built on SharePoint, with Salesforce. So it was kind of a very interesting journey, and we'll talk about it in a bit, but really that's what we're here to talk about today is really moving that student experience off of a SharePoint system into more of an interactive portal built on Salesforce.
And Mike, what I love, so when we were talking earlier, what I made a note to myself, I thought, as you were selecting, moving from SharePoint and say, okay, maybe it's Salesforce, maybe it's any number of other technologies. There's lots of ways to create a portal. I would love to just hear more from your perspective about that journey of making the vendor selection, because you mentioned to me something interesting. It wasn't just about the tech. Obviously, the tech's important here, but it's also about just a mindset shift at Harvard Kennedy School of like, wait a minute, we have to move from document repository mindset to this is an experience that we're creating. It's a portal experience.
Yeah, so that was kind of very interesting. So we were coming from SharePoint. We had a lot of SharePoint skills in house. So the question was, well, why don't we just kind of lift and shift to a newer version of SharePoint? Um, and that was on the table. We also looked at a different third-party tool that was kind of more of a intranet style web version. And then there was also Salesforce. And um, Salesforce was actually not in the running, or it was on the bottom of the list at first. And then we kind of said, hey, we need to think about this differently. So what we actually did was like a bake-off. We did a POC of each of the systems that focused on both the user experience of the faculty, staff, and student, but also the people that have to maintain this thing and kind of add content and really look at it as this is not posting a bunch of Word docs, posting a bunch of
Mhm.
PowerPoints, um, version control nightmares. This is like, we want a student, faculty, staff to come in, find what they need to find, get what they need to do done, and then maybe they're off and doing something else. So really it was like, how do we take all the power of Salesforce because we know all this information about them in a CRM and then make an experience that's really kind of meaningful for them and customized based on their persona. So just quickly, a big knock of the old system was the search. If I search for training, I make it 10 articles about student training before I get to the staff one. But with
Uh-huh.
Salesforce, it knows I'm a staff member. So when I do a search for training, it's like, here's all the staff training resources that you need.
And Mike, I love that. And I love that it's sort of you have this sort of persona-based interactions with the system. One thing you mentioned to me, and I think this is super important, is part of making sure it's a great seamless experience is making sure you can be agile in terms of making updates to it, that it loads quickly, that things just work, if you will. Part of you making sure things just work was moving to Lightning Web Runtime during that implementation. Can you talk about maybe that decision and how you rolled that out?
Yeah, so when we kind of started the project, LWR was still pretty new, and we kind of did a comparison, and Aura at the time kind of delivered on what we needed, but the project went on for 12, 16, 18 months. We got to kind of a critical mass where we said, okay, LWR is coming. Do we do it now or do we wait? And really, we did a comparison. Um, so much of what we were doing required kind of custom components and custom code that it made sense to do LWR. So we made the pretty dramatic decision to pause all development and focus solely on getting to LWR. And what we found is when we did that, development cycles were quicker, speed time on the website was much better. The features that we could build were kind of just more robust. And also, Salesforce started to release more and more on LWR that wasn't being released in Aura. So it was
Mhm.
kind of a big pitch to leadership to say, like, hey, we have to kind of push pause, which was pretty kind of scary, and say, we're going to do this. But then afterwards, we saw a huge benefit. And I think one kind of great story is we had a major deployment in Aura and it went pretty well, but it took 3 or 4 days. And then we had a final major deployment and it was on LWR and it took about 5 minutes. And everyone was kind of
That's
waiting
amazing.
for something to happen. It was really just like, hey, the site's live, everything got deployed. The change set's there, everything's kind of published. So that right there kind of paid for itself for that kind of pause to do that kind of migration.
That's awesome. And Mike, I know we're running out of time here, so I will maybe invite folks to join us January 14th because we talked about you're doing persona-based faculty, staff, student work. When you tune in next week, or in a few weeks, January 14th, we can talk more about your vision, which is moving from persona-based to leveraging AI tools to have more one-on-one based engagement to deepen that connection with students, faculty, and staff. So I'm excited for that. Thank you, Mike, for taking the time to be with us today. And
No,
thank you,
thanks for the
Haley.
opportunity. Yes, yeah, looking forward to our January session.
Yeah.
Yes.
Man, you guys did so good on timing. I don't think you could have timed it better. And I will be at that webinar because we are talking about a very similar thing internally, that like experience for staff and for faculty. So that's so cool. Well, thank you guys for joining me and for having this conversation. And don't forget, everybody, please tune in to the webinar on January 14th, right? January
That's right.
14th. So and we'll give more information about Higher Ed Dream in 2026 in the coming weeks. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.